All right, and we are live. This is Mack Bolen, and I am here with Rob Sherrill. Again, we're doing our weekly Illinois wrestling podcast, and we'll go ahead and start off looking back kind of at the individual state tournament. Not going to go through all the weight classes, just kind of touch on some of the key stories involving all three classes. So let's go ahead and start off with Class 1A, and, the Bronagles is a good story right there.
Yeah, they had, of course, the Brown Eagles, of course, both repeated as champions. Danny at 160, Zach at 182, and Danny extended some of his state records in the tournament. 4 matches, 4 technical falls. I believe that took him to somewhere around 37 for the season, which broke a state record, and 71 for his career, which he already had the state record. And he also extended his state records for points, both in a season and career. He went well over the 900 mark in points. So he not only broke Nate McMillan's record, he smashed it by about 50 or 60 points. So he set a couple of records. Of course, I think overall what we're looking at is the fact that 5 guys went into the State Farm Center with a chance to come out as 3-time state champions, and only one was able to do it, and that one wasn't in 1A, by the way. Both the guys who had a chance to do it in 1A, neither of them were successful. I've kind of thought one of them would have a tough time, and that was Tyler Fleetwood of Fulton at 132. Of course, that just a loaded weight class.
Oh yeah,
and Fleetwood was pinned in the semifinals by Jared Van Vliet of Stillman Valley, who went on to win the title.
And Van Vliet obviously is
over Stone Angle of Mercer County, who was kind of between 26 and 32 as to in which direction he wanted to go. He wound up going 132, and he made it all the way to the finals. Yeah. He was a 4-time state place winner. Of course, the other big story at 1A was Trey Hill to Petersburg Porta finally won one after finishing second in the state 3 years in a row. He wrestled Zach Haley of Quincy, Notre Dame 3 straight weeks in the state series, lost to him 11-9 in overtime in the regional, beat him 4-3 in the finals of the sectional at Olympia. And last week, first period takedown, second period takedown, and he held on for a 5-3 win over Haley. So Hill finally found the weight class that was right for him and finally won his state title. And so good for him. We had a few other schools that won their first state titles. Anna Jonesboro was one, with R.E.A. Hart at 152 winning. That's the first state title for Anna Jonesboro. And actually, that was the only one in 1A. There were several right in other classifications. Yes. Cameron Johnson of Aurora Christian repeated at 120 in a really epic match against Alex Friddle of Coal City. It was 2-2, and Friddle was trying for the third period ride out, missed it by 1 second. Johnson came out the back door for the reversal with 1 second left in the third period and won that by a score of 4-2. And the other wrestler who had a chance to come out as a 3-time state champion was at 126 and Chase Biddle of Belleville Aldoff was winning 5-0 with a minute left, and Noah Villarreal came back with 3 takedowns in the third period to tie it at 7-7 and send it into overtime. And Biddle almost had an escape at the end of regulation to win it. They didn't give it to him, and Villarreal wound up getting another takedown in overtime and winning that match. And then at 138, Joey Bianchini of IC Catholic also repeated. He's a 2-time state champion. And we did have another brother combination win state titles. That was 2 brother combinations in 1A. We already talked about the Brown Eagles. But Drew Hazelton of Prairie Central won 1-0 at 170. He to finish his career with a title. And at 195, his brother Brandon, who is just a freshman, got a fall in the finals to win there. So the Hazelton brothers also won. Were a second brother combination in 1A to win state titles.
So going on to 2A, obviously the female wrestler made the biggest hit. I mean, that was a huge story. It was covered in the Tribune. But there were a lot of other stories in 2A.
Probably, it's not going to be often at Champaign that the press and a lot of other people show up at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning.
Right.
But they did this time.
Yeah.
To see if she could pull it off. And she had Anthony King, and she did the best she could, but you can't coach horsepower. And King went out there and pulled out ahead right away and added a throw later on, and he won by a score of 12-3. And he made sure she didn't hang around and maybe make a late run. But certainly for her to be there and win 2 matches and come
huge,
with a match of placing was certainly an accomplishment for her. So moving on, some other we did have a couple of 2-timers, one 2-timer in this way classification as well that came up short, and that was Lee Rochelle of Chicago, Washington at 138. He fell behind 7-0 again. Actually, 7-0 against Riley Palm of Carmel, and Palm won that by a score of 11-1 at 138. So that ended Rochelle's chance for a third title. We did have a few guys come up with their second titles. Justin Cardani of Champaign Centennial at 113 was undefeated his final 2 seasons. He won it at 113 over the freshman from Washington, Joey Cape. At 126, a really exciting match here at 126, a rematch of a sectional final. And Austin Macias of Burlington Central tossed Ethan Harstead of Ottawa, and Harstead was on his back and trying to avoid getting pinned within the first 5 seconds of the match. And he did fight it for a long time. He fought it hard for almost a minute before Macias finally got the fall and his second state title. And Burlington Central, which had not had a title before Macias won last year, wound up with 2 as Nick Termini won in overtime at 145. So 2 state champs for Burlington Central there. And the other champion to repeat was at 220, where Luke Luffman of Urbana won over Jacob Bullock of Cahokia in another sectional rematch.
Yeah, we had a wild one, the Tyler Delaware match.
Right, and that was a situation where conditioning just won it for
absolutely.
Savion Haywood of Bloomington. Those two guys, of course, wrestled in the sectional final with Haywood winning that match, and Delaware did lead this one early, and Haywood came back, and Delaware had to take a couple of injury times in the final minute. He took another one in the overtime. He took one in the overtime as well, and he just didn't have anything left for Haywood by the time overtime started, and Haywood got that takedown pretty easily to win it. So 2 years in a row, a state champion for Bloomington.
Yep. So moving on to 3A. A lot of stories in 3A, as you alluded to before. The one guy, Real Woods, did finish as a 3-time champ, 4-time finalist, won his second in a row, and won his third at 132 pounds. 2 streaks we had continued with Jacob Rundle winning at 106, gave Oak Park River Forest, and you filled me in on this one, 7 consecutive years with an individual state champ.
7 years in a row, a state champ for Oak Park. And
in Glenbard North,
that pales next to the Montini streak, as we know.
Well, we're talking just strictly Class 3A, though. 7 in a row in 3A. And then Glenbard North, though, had their 12th in a row with Abe Assad, which is another big streak. Now, overall, if we, in talking records, obviously Montini had a phenomenal individual state tournament, 7 finalists. They finished with 10 All-Staters, which is a new record. 7 finalists is a new record. And they tied the 4 champion record.
4 champs, and not necessarily the 4 you might expect.
No, well, exactly, and there were some, there were some tough matches, and obviously, one of the toughest things to watch. Joey Melendez has had a phenomenal high school career. It just absolutely rips your heart out to see a kid, take an injury like he did, and with nothing to prove, he still went out there and competed. And I gotta say hats off to him for doing that. Because, it's really heartbreaking when you have to finish a note. Now, I know he's going to go on and do great things for Carolina, but it's just a tough way to end your final season.
It is, but boy, I think we're really being remiss if we don't give Anthony Bolton some credit for the state.
Oh yeah, no, he did. He had a great
tournament. 2 guys back to back,
no doubt.
With who came to the state tournament with 3 state championships between them.
Yeah,
beating a 2-timer 11-2, injury or no injury. In the semifinals, and then really handling Ford Melton 7-4 in the final, and really the reason I I was happy to see that happen was because a wrestler who's not afraid to take chances won over a wrestler who was afraid to take chances.
Yeah, and I think to me the big victory for him was in the finals over Travis Ford Melton.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
We know that Ford Melton sometimes is not as offensive as he should be. And that really cost him, particularly in the final. And really, he almost he struggled in the semifinals because of it. And Moulton was not afraid to let it fly,
no. And he did. He
did. And it paid off for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And then you mentioned before schools with getting their first state champion, Plainfield North.
Right. Plainfield North got their first state champion, and In fact, Edwardsville got their first state champion.
Right, and that was a rematch
champion before certain. And it was a match where, he dominated 5 minutes of the match and sort of mailed in the last minute, but still won 7-6.
And that was a rematch from the Cheesehead finals where Ragusan had won. I think it was 3-1 was the score.
Yeah.
And you knew it was going to be a good match. Actually, that was, I like the fact that Ragusan, even though he was down, he pushed it at the end, but, it was just, he just came up a little short.
Yeah, too much too late. And of course, after a lot of years of near misses, Jack Jessen finally got his title. An interesting, turn of events early in that match with Stemmet scoring off of his shot.
Yeah.
But Jessen got down to business and he dominated the rest of that match and won 8-3.
And we talked earlier, about some of the guys that, we thought would win. We had the rematch at 152 between Hartman and Luan. Luan winning last year. And then this year, Hartman, he wrestled a smart match. He got the reversal and he made his points stand up. He rode tough on top.
Hartman beat him on the mat.
Yep.
Stepped over for that reversal in the second period, and I don't know if I would have guessed that those would be the only points of the match, but he rode him for the final 3 minutes plus.
Yeah, and we couldn't go without mentioning, of course, the Styles versus Coleman Part 5, which was a wild match, and this time Styles prevailed.
Got an escape at the buzzer in the tiebreaker to win that.
And again, one of the more, we know the big guns, so to speak, on Montini. But then again, you look at Ortiz, great match versus Gross. And you would think after the call, when they called him for the stalling on the, with the legs in and standing up, and then when it happened the second time and the referees conferred and then awarded another point for stall call, you would think at that point somebody would get flustered. But you know what? Mentally, he hung in there and he did what he had to do to win. I was very impressed with that match in particular at 160.
Yeah, exactly. That's
that showed a lot of poise to me. I mean, when everything's going wrong for you, but you still find a way to win.
Right. Yeah. It's they both. He's just been in more big matches this year, and I think that showed.
And talk about Montini though. Let's look at we looked at the train wreck, the absolute train wreck that are not Montini. I'm sorry. Let me take it back. Marmion Academy. We look at the absolute train wreck that Marmion Academy was at the beginning of the season and how they showed up for the state tournament.
Yeah, well, it was a question. They finally got
they got their bodies back.
Guys where they should be, and guys were reasonably healthy, at least healthy enough to get as far as they got. And certainly Chumbley going to 138 opened up things for a couple of their guys down lower in the lineup, and they were able to get Jimenez back in there, and it's certainly a credit to them that they were able to spread guys out enough, because they had some real log jams weight wise there.
Sure. Well, they had 4 guys in the finals. I mean, that's
able to spread guys out enough that those guys were able to do what they did. Is they certainly wrestled their best at the right time of the year.
Oh, absolutely. And they put 4 guys in the finals. Granted, Chumbley was the only one to win, but given the season they've had, if you're a fan of Marmion Academy, you kind of really feel good about the way they showed up in the state tournament. It was very impressive. Getting guys back. It was great to see Nate Jimenez, who took a bad injury, but at least came back. He made it to the finals. He didn't win, but, you know, great way to come back. And we mentioned before about Plainfield North and the Hennessy match. And, you know, on the lighter side here a little bit in this day and age of cell phones and everything, I was calling the match, and about halfway through, he took an injury timeout, and they ran the bucket over, and he was basically on what I guess, for lack of a better term, would call gag time, because he had to throw up. And literally I watched, and I don't know how many cell phones came out at that moment when he's sitting there bending over on a bucket, but it was just something I had to shake my head at and laugh. What can you say? Commentary-wise, what can you say?
Yeah, exactly. There couldn't be any other reason for that match being that close. He was obviously sick as a dog.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was
because he's far away the best guy at that weight, and to only win 12 to 11, and if the match had been 6 minutes and 10 seconds in length, he might have lost.
Who knows?
You know something's wrong, not right with him when that's the case.
Oh yeah, but you know, when you see a guy stop in injury time and he puts his hands on their knees, and you're thinking, what's going on? Then all of a sudden, you see someone run across a mat with a trash can, and then you go, okay.
Yeah, and last note on 3A, I don't think there is any doubt who the best wrestler in Illinois was. He was wrestling heavyweight.
Oh, yeah. Cassiope was 2 years in a row now.
I watched him, as much as I could, which, obviously is not going to be very much. But he did it all in this state tournament. He played take him down and let him up with guys.
Oh, yeah.
He showed a variety of things. It wasn't just take the guy down in tournament, it's over. I think you look at it's hard to show progress necessarily after you pinned everybody in the state as a junior,
right?
But this year, he not only did it, he pinned everybody in the first period, which has never been done in the
first period,
highest classification. And
truly a guy who dominates his weight class.
I've always marveled at him because he's not a guy who, from a physical physique standpoint, is necessarily going to blow you away. But boy, what a natural!
Well, he has power. He has technique.
He has strength. He has power. He has everything.
He's never out of position. And let's face it. Let's talk on a national level. Seriously, there's really only one guy in the nation that you could say that would match him, and we both know who it is. It's
that's what I think,
Apple Valley.
That's what I think. Although I think this summer,
we'll see.
Maybe we'll see him wrestle Schultz. That would be a match I would pay to see.
Oh yeah.
Because last weekend Schultz also had all first period pins in his state tournament in Colorado. So that's going to be a showdown that's going to happen sooner than later, rather than later, I think.
Well, and let's look forward, because both Gable Stevenson and Anthony Cassiope, they're Big Ten bound. Both of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
we'll see that
several times.
We'll see that down the road, and that's one I'm looking forward to too. Now, talking conference-wise now, just because you kind of got to mention the way the Catholic League represented in the state tournament. And at 2A, I think they had at least they had two champs, right? Johnson and Kaminsky.
Johnson,
in 2A,
right?
Brother Rice and Fenwick. And then obviously 3A was, you're looking at Coleman from Mount Carmel, the guys from Army and Academy. Montini was 7 finalists. So you got to give props. That's just an absolutely dominating performance by that conference. I mean, just loaded.
Right. Although, right. really although it was really just a couple of schools in that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely,
certainly those schools were very dominant.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course now moving on, as we wind down the season, we had the team sectionals on Thursdays, and Class 1A as usual was
it was interesting.
Was the chaos because both you and I, Lena Winslow, and what happened?
Yep, 37-24, and I've not had it, and I'm going to pull up the bracket right now because number 1 against number 3. That that certainly bears some discussion. We'll take a look and see what weight they started at. Okay. Final results is not what I want. Let's look at bracket. There we go. 37-24 was the final. They did I don't know what weight they started at. It's listed it was 106. It could have started at 106. Aurora Christian did win 9 matches. Although and Lena Winslow did get an upset at 113 when Simon Riley, who's just a freshman, pinned Tyler Ebby, the state place winner. So they got some points there that they may not have been expecting. But 138, Zeke Marshall with a 4-3 win over Hunter Luke in a battle of state place winners. At 145, Eli Ibarra beat Jeremiah Herman 5-1, and they also got a big win at 195 with Daryl Gregg scoring a major decision 15-5 over Elijah Rowe, who Lena Winslow bumped up. But they did. Yes, they did. They did win 9 matches.
Yep.
And certainly.
Yeah. No, it was.
I think I talked to Lena Winslow's coach at the state, and he was, he was hopeful in a couple of spots, and it looks like those didn't pan out for him. Aurora Christian did win 3 1-point matches, which made a big difference.
That probably made a huge difference. Now we know Coal City won; they're advancing.
Right. They won a big one over Clinton, and let's
and that's one of our better. That's one of our better matchups.
We'll pull that one up and see what and see how that went. Let's see, that was at Gibson City, and that was that was the other. And they were on the same side of the bracket as Aurora Christian. That was a number 4 against number 5 match. There was the other match at Gibson City went to criteria with El Paso Gridley winning over Beardstown. They tied at 33-33. And let's see if I can tell from the El Paso had 8 wins. So that was a relatively easy one to break there. But looking at the Clinton Coal City match, which Coal City won by a score of 40-29, they had 8 wins, and really not a lot in the way of upsets here. Really, if I'm looking at the bracket, the more surprising wins went to Clinton here. So we got to give Clinton a little bit of credit for keeping this one close.
Sure, but the unfortunate part of this, and which you and I have spoke about quite a bit, the fact that you had Aurora Christian and Lena Winslow match up in a team sectional, Cole City and Clinton match up in a team sectional, and the fact that both of those teams are in the bottom bracket, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct. So Aurora Christian and Cole City are going to meet in a semifinal,
which is unfortunate.
And they will meet in a semifinal because
they're definitely going to.
Lena Winslow's. I mean, Aurora Christian's got Hope Academy, and Cole City has got they've got El Paso, and that'll be a decent match.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate you had such a loaded team sectional and then feeding into a bottom bracket, but on the top bracket. Who really in the top bracket is going to come through?
IC Catholic against Vandalia.
Vandalia
will win that match easily. And then you have at Belleville Altoff against Erie Prophetstown, which I think is more of a toss-up than you might imagine. And Vandalia already owns a win over Altoff this year, so. After a lot of years of really bad draws, the bracket gods might finally have smiled on Vandalia.
Yeah, they get a break
in terms of getting them to the state finals. So,
well, it's interesting because Belleville Altoff has a lot of star power, but they don't have the depth.
Right, which we saw at the Rumble. They had a couple of losses to teams with more balance. Now, of course, they did not wrestle. Litchfield in a duel this year. They won that regional, their own regional by 8 points over Litchfield, and Litchfield I think Litchfield had a real good chance of beating them in a duel, but of course that's something that isn't going to happen in this format. So that really was their toughest battle so far. Was that regional showdown between them and Litchfield. So we'll see what happens in the first round on Saturday. And of course, they're in the top bracket, so they'll be wrestling in the first rotation.
So you think possible matchup Vandalia versus the winner between Christian and
I think I would predict a Vandalia Aurora Christian final probably.
Okay.
Certainly that Aurora Christian the semifinals are both going to be very good, I think.
Sure.
So because we're probably looking at Vandalia Althoff on the top side, and Aurora Christian Cole City on the bottom side. And Aurora Christian already does own a win over Cole City this year, but that Cole City is a much better team now than they were at the week before Christmas. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
So that should be a good semifinal matchup then.
Yeah, they'll both be good semifinal matchups, I think.
All right, so moving on to 2A. Obviously, we both agree that Washington's the favorite overall.
Sure. Now, they'll have a interesting. They'll have an interesting start against Marion Central.
Well, Marion Central again, they're kind of like Althoff. They've got some good wrestlers, but I just don't think they have the depth.
They don't have the bat. And they're still very, very young.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're a very young team. Yeah.
I don't think they have the experience to get by Washington.
Yeah. Well, and Washington's they're battle tested. They compete nationally.
Yeah,
they're a tough team.
They've got wins over 3A teams. So pulling up the bracket. Okay.
So who do we think could be a possible finalist against Washington?
So the bracket is in the top. It's going to be this is a really good quarterfinal, I think. Very competitive between St. Rita and Antioch.
That'll be a good one.
The winner will get the Marion Washington winner, and then in the bottom you have Oak Forest against Rochelle, which I think Oak Forest will win, not handily, but I think they'll win. And then you have Chatham Glenwood against Cahokia. And those two teams have not met in a duel yet this year. But when you look at the fact that Muhammad, the second week of December, beat Cahokia 56-15. Tuesday night, Cahokia won by the same score. So that tells you how much better they are than they were at that point in the season. So this is a match that's going to go down to the end. In fact, I think Cahokia will beat Glenwood. Okay. So I think it'll be a Cahokia. I'm going to project a Washington Cahokia final.
Okay, and Cahokia, they're a good season, but I just don't think they have a chance against Washington.
No, but if you're looking for a team, and maybe Marion Central is in this category of a team that is light years better in 2A than they were in December. Cahokia is number one on that list.
Sure.
And number one by a wide margin.
Yeah.
So I think they will get to the finals. And it's just a question of how close they can stay to Washington.
Sure. And I would say also it's Oak Forest has kind of been a permanent fixture at the Elite Eight. I mean, they've done a good job of continually qualifying for the state tournament.
They've done better. Yeah, they've done better this year than I expected out of them. I think they're gonna have their hands full with Rochelle.
Sure.
I think that's a match that's going to go down to the end. But I think Cahokia comes out of the bottom of that bracket.
All righty. So now moving on to 3A, we had probably the duel that I want to talk about most, which, Lockport this year is not Lockport of last year, obviously. But they still, going into the final three matches, had a 30-15 lead over Manuka, and Manuka managed to get 3 pins in the last 3 matches and win the duel 33-30. Figure the odds on that one.
Well, it's all where you start the duel and where you finish the duel. And tell me offhand what weight they started at, and I'll tell you whether
they finished in the heavier weights. And I think that's what. Well, to start off with, Lockport, I know had a couple of backups in it. I know they bumped a few guys. I believe the younger Oster was wrestling at 106 or 113, but they Fernandez wasn't in the lineup. I mean, like I said, they were definitely snake bit. They were not the team they were last year.
Short-handed.
Yeah, very, very short-handed, but just still going into the finals, you thought, okay, if they've just got one, or if they keep these to decisions, they still win the duel. But to give up 18 points in the last 3 matches is tough. I mean, that's a hard way to go down.
I'm going to go back and take a look at this duel, since I have not looked at it yet.
Yeah.
And see what
we had a competitive duel with Huntley and Prospect was a fairly competitive duel. Montini beat Mount Carmel again fairly easily. I think it was 45-15. Of course, they had to adjust their lineup with Melendez being out. I noticed they shifted their lineup, but they still, and to say it, match 6, Coleman won this one versus Styles with a last-minute takedown. I think the score was 3-1. Marmion Academy won. They're advancing, but then, of course,
I'm looking at the Brunel. Yeah, they 220, 85, 285, and 106 were the last 3.
Yep, and
they just have nothing there.
Yeah,
those are 220 and 285 are 2 of Manuka's top guys.
Better guys, yeah, absolutely.
So that's not
Well, they bumped Kaminsky to 113, to try and, shift their lineup and,
2, 3. I mean, it actually, this actually went 7-7 in matches.
Oh yeah. It was the bonus points. Yeah, definitely.
There's just looking at this duel. Lockport was out of bullets after 160. I mean, Degash to beat Dufour, that was a big win for them. That put them in a position to possibly pull an upset based on these matchups. Certainly, I mean, Lockport actually had the bigger wins in this match with Pirandozzi beating Bowles and Collada beating DeBow and Degash beating Dufour. Those are and Salah beating Gutneck. Those are 4 matches where if you're Lockport, you're probably thinking, if I win those 4,
right,
I'm going to win this thing.
Yeah.
And it just didn't have,
tough finish.
They just had too many holes with this lineup.
So going forward now, we look at the matchups going to state. You've got Oak Parker, Forest, and Manuka. You've got, I believe it's Huntley and Glenbard North. Glenbard North.
That's
early. Glenbard North and Conant was early for, a few matches, but then, Glenbard North ran away with it.
Wrestled the 3rd week in December, and Glenbard North won that pretty easily.
Yeah.
So the question is going to be, can Huntley make up any ground? And without Justin Allen, I'm not sure they can.
And obviously on the bottom bracket, you've got Montini in there, Marmion Academy.
Montini and Marmion, of course, is a quarterfinal.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Providence against Barrington.
Yeah, and Providence had a big win over Edwardsville to extend Coach Healy's final season.
So I'm looking at that one. They started at 160 in that duel, and Providence got off to a 13-0 lead there with 3 wins. And fact, Edwardsville led only once. They led 24-23 after Providence forfeited to Odom at 132. But then they won the last 3 with Perk, Ambrose, and Ramos.
Yep.
So that was the end of it. So now just as an overall look here, so far, all these matches vis-a-vis the rankings, the team rankings, there were 24 sectional matches wrestled on Tuesday. 22 of them involved at least either both teams were ranked or one team was ranked. And in those 22 matches, the higher ranked team or the ranked team went 20-2. The only teams to lose, the only higher ranked teams to lose were Lena Winslow Stockton losing to Aurora Christian.
Yeah.
And in 2A, Cahokia beating Muhammad Seymour.
Right.
Those were the only 2 lower ranked teams to win on Tuesday, and the 20 other matches, the ranked or higher ranked team won. So the team rankings wound up being pretty accurate.
Right. I think looking at 3A, even without Melendez in the lineup, I still think Montini's the favorite, the prohibitive favorite. I just think their depth, they even with having to juggle our lineup, they're just too deep, and they just have too much talent.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do much juggling. They can.
Yeah,
they can win with one guy missing.
Yeah. This is kind of like, I look at it like saying, yeah, this is their year. On the other side of the bracket, I look at Oak Park River Forest. I kind of think they're the favorite to make the finals against Montini, but I don't really give them a chance against Montini.
Assuming all their guys are in, I think that's probably a pretty safe bet. It's like you never know who's going to be in and who's not, but especially if they have 38 filled with somebody good.
Yeah, well, I know Hernandez is back in the lineup for OPRF. I don't know about Early or Madrigal. I don't know if we'll see them wrestle at dual team state. Both of them were injured, so it's hard to say. But again, I look at Montini in that lineup and just so much talent. Even with Melendez out of the lineup, they're just. Yeah, they're the best team in the state. They really are.
It doesn't really matter who they put at 120. They could forfeit 120 all day and they'll be fine. Yeah. I mean, if they have a second 106 pounder, I guess they could bump a couple of guys.
Well, they did in the duel against Mount Carmel. They bumped the entire lineup. I don't know who they put at 106, but. 9 Vasquez wrestled 113. Ragusan was at 120. They pretty much shuffled the whole thing up. Interesting to note, Swire did not wrestle in that duel against Mount Carmel.
Yeah, that's it was.
It's not like they needed him though. Like they won easily. Still,
sure, there's no reason to wrestle everybody if you don't need to.
All right, so that's pretty much the lowdown. Now, I'm going to be down there at dual team state. I'll be calling the Class 3A. Once everything's done, we'll be back the following Thursday, and we'll kind of do like a recap of the whole season, kind of an overview, and kind of look towards next year. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen via injuries, eligibilities, blah, 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 blah. But we'll do our best to kind of look forward.
What teams are in what classification?
Right. Yeah, that too, because we know that changes.
A little early to say about that.
Yeah, that success factor.
Aurora Christian stay in 1A may be very short.
Yeah, they may be.
St. Rita stay in 2A may be very short.
Yep. Yeah, very true.
Which I know is Mike Boyd's goal all along. But I think he wanted this particular group of guys he's got to get their feet wet in 2A before they went back up.
Yeah, he's got a young team
because he knew that was what was going to happen eventually.
Oh yeah, and he's got a young team. He's got a lot to build on, but he's a good coach. I mean, I think a good choice for
freshmen. So
yeah, well, I think he was a good choice for St. Rita. And on the plus side, just to go down to the feeder programs, you've got an outstanding crew right now with Manzella and Harney running the South Side Knockout, the Vidum Cats, which have the potential to be a great feeder program for St. Rita and some of the guys, maybe Mount Carmel, but definitely, they're going to benefit from that.
Oh yeah, I know that was one thing that Dan was looking at is his contribution once he left St. Rita, and certainly it's something that I think we could all look forward to as the gift that keeps on giving down there in that
absolutely
of suburbia.
I had the chance to, we did a clinic down there and had a chance to see some of his kids. He's got a good core of talent in that room right now, and Vidum Cats, if we go back a ways, were a great program. They fell off the radar for a while, and I think it's great to see two guys like Harney and Manzella reboot it, because it's always good for the high schools and for the basically for wrestling in the state overall.
Yeah, I know Danny was, was looking forward to just, working with kids and developing kids. And I think, that he's going to be able to do that now.
Oh, absolutely. And he's a quality individual. I mean, it's a great fit, and he and Harney work great together.
Both those guys, both those guys do a good job with that program, for sure.
All right, so folks, we're going to wrap it up. Any feedback, by all means, go ahead, post, message. We want to hear it. Look forward to, basically, this is the last big event of the Illinois high school wrestling season, folk style. And of course, we've got freestyle and Greco-Roman to look on to, after that. I'll have some special podcasts after this. Next Thursday will be our last normal weekly podcast. So hope you guys enjoyed this season. Hope you enjoy what we're doing. Again, give us your feedback, and that's it. See you next Thursday.